I'm 28, male, the kind of guy who grew up in a small Ohio town where everybody knew everybody and knew your business before you did. I work in finance now. Stable, quiet life. But every thunderstorm still takes me back to one specific night when I was 15, standing on a wet porch in October with nothing but a backpack and a hoodie, listening to my stepmother tell me I was a liar and a thief, and to get out. Let me back up. My dad remarried when I was 11. My biological mom passed from cancer when I was 9, and for 2 years it was just him and me, which honestly were two of the closest years of my life. Then she came into the picture. She had 2 kids of her own, a daughter who was 13 and a son who was 8. She swept my dad off his feet fast. 6 months of dating, then a ring, then a wedding I sat through in a rented suit that didn't fit. She was never outright cruel, not at first. It was more like I became invisible. The house shifted around her kids. The fridge had their snacks. The calendar had their sports schedules. My dad tried, I'll give him that, but he worked double shifts at the plant and she ran everything at home.
Her word was law.
The first year, I just kept my head down, got good grades, stayed in my room. I figured if I caused 0 problems, I'd survive until I could leave for college. That was the plan. Then October came, and the plan fell apart in one night. Her daughter, I'll call her my stepsister, had this thing where she tested people. She'd push, watch your reaction, then report back to her mother with whatever spin made her look like the victim. I noticed it early, but couldn't prove it. She'd borrowed money from me twice, $40 total, and never paid it back, which I let go. But then my dad's watch went missing. It was the watch my grandmother had given him. Old, gold-plated, not worth much financially, but worth everything emotionally. He kept it on his dresser. When it disappeared, the house went quiet in that specific way a house does when something serious just happened. My stepmother came to my room first, not to ask, to accuse. You took that watch. I hadn't touched it. I told her that. She said she had reason to believe otherwise. I asked what reason. She wouldn't say. Just stood there with her arms crossed, doing that slow exhale through the nose that she had mastered, the one that said you're beneath an explanation. I found out later from my stepsister's younger brother, who genuinely liked me, poor kid, that my stepsister had told their mom she saw me going through dad stuff. She hadn't. She'd fabricated it. But her word versus mine was never a fair fight in that house. My dad came home late. My stepmother had already built the full case before he walked in the door. I could hear them in the kitchen, her voice low and practiced, his confused and tired. When he came to my room, he looked like a man trying to hold 2 contradictory things at once and failing. Did you take the watch?
No, Dad. I didn't.
He rubbed his face. She says. I know what she says. It's not true. He nodded, slowly. Said he believed me. Said he'd sort it out. And then he went back downstairs. But my stepmother had already sorted it out her way. An hour later, she was back at my door. Her voice had that flat, finished quality. I spoke to your father. We agreed. Until this is resolved, you need to stay somewhere else. It's raining. I know. Where am I supposed to go? That's not my problem. And she closed the door. I stood there for a full minute just staring at the wood grain. Then I packed a bag, walked past the kitchen where my dad sat at the table not looking at me, and stepped outside into the rain. That night changed everything. Just not in the way she expected. I walked 3 blocks to my friend's house. His mom, a woman who should be canonized, opened the door, looked at me dripping on her porch at 10 p.m., and said nothing except get in here. She made soup, She called my dad. He came over, visibly shaken, and I saw something crack in him that night. The beginning of him understanding what he'd allowed to happen. I stayed there a week. The watch turned up on day 4. Her son, the 8-year-old, had taken it. Not maliciously. He'd thought it was cool, hidden it in his toy bin, completely forgotten about it. He admitted it immediately when his mom questioned him. No manipulation, just a kid being a kid. I expected that to be the end of it. Apology, reconciliation, maybe some awkward dinner. I was 15. I still believed people corrected themselves when they were wrong. My stepmother called my dad. She told him the watch had been found with her son. She never said the word sorry to me. Not once. When I came home, she was already spinning it as a misunderstanding, as if I had simply wandered into the rain voluntarily for fun. What she did next, though, is where she overplayed her hand badly. She pulled my dad aside and suggested that I needed therapeutic support for my behavioral issues. She told him I had been escalating conflicts in the house for months. She had a typed list. I later saw it, 3 pages, single-spaced, incidents that were either distorted versions of real events or complete fiction. She had dates, times, alleged quotes from me that I had never said. She handed it to my dad like a legal brief. My dad, to his credit, read the whole thing in front of her, put it down, looked at her, and said, "Where was I for any of this?" She said he was working. He said, "I want to talk to my son."
She didn't like that.
You could see it, the slight tightening, the recalibration. She pivoted immediately, softened, said she only wanted what was best for the family. Classic. The moment her play didn't land, she switched from prosecutor to peacemaker so fast it would have given you whiplash. But the list existed, and I kept a copy of it. I also started keeping records of my own. My friend's mom, who worked in family services, had quietly given me a notebook that week I stayed with her. Write down dates, what happened, what was said, who was there, she told me. You may never need it, but you might. I started writing. Over the next 2 years, I filled that notebook. Every manufactured conflict. Every time she told my dad something untrue about me. Every time she froze me out of family plans with a reason just thin enough to sound plausible. The time she told my school counselor I had anger issues at home, I found that out because the counselor, bless her, called my dad to confirm, and he had no idea what she was talking about. My stepsister escalated alongside her mother. Sophomore year, she told a group of kids at school that I'd stolen from her too, money from her room. I hadn't set foot in her room in months, but it spread fast in a small town. I didn't fight it publicly. I just kept writing. My dad was waking up slowly. Too slowly for me at the time, but he was getting there. He started noticing the gaps between what she told him and what he could verify. He started asking more questions. She did not like questions. The entitled behavior had a rhythm to it. Accuse.
Spin.
Soften when challenged. Then wait and accuse again from a different angle. She was patient and practiced. She'd done this before. I learned years later that her first husband had left citing almost identical dynamics, but at 15, I just knew what I could see. What I didn't know yet was that the notebook was going to matter more than I ever imagined. When I was 17, my paternal grandmother passed away. She'd been sick for a while. She left a modest estate, some savings, the family home she'd owned outright in a neighboring town, and a few pieces of jewelry. Her will was simple, split evenly between my dad and his sister, with a specific handwritten note that the gold watch, the one that had disappeared and started everything, was to go directly to me when I turned 18. My stepmother found out about the house before the will was read. I don't know how, but she did. And something shifted in her that week. She became generous, warm, even started including me in dinner conversations, asking about school, smiling at me in the hallway. My stepsister followed her lead. I didn't trust it. I just kept writing. After the will was read, my stepmother made her move. She came to my dad with a suggestion. The grandmother's house should be sold, proceeds pooled into the family account, to be used for the children's college funds. All three of them. Except my grandmother's will didn't work that way. The house went to my dad and his sister jointly. His sister was not interested in selling, and the handwritten note about the watch was legally attached to the estate documentation, not binding under Ohio probate law on its own, but my grandmother's attorney had the foresight to include a separate small bequest in the formal will, a specific dollar amount earmarked for me at 18 for my grandmother's savings account, approximately $6,000. My stepmother argued to my dad that the $6,000 should go into the family college fund too. My dad's sister called me directly. She'd never liked my stepmother. Your grandmother wanted you to have that money. Do not let anyone touch it. I was 17. I couldn't control the probate process, but I could document the pressure being applied. I wrote it all down, dates and conversations. My dad's sister hired an attorney to ensure the estate was distributed per the will. The $6,000 was placed in an account in my name only upon my 18th birthday, per the terms, with my dad's sister as the custodian until then. My stepmother was furious in the way that entitled people get furious, not explosively, but in this cold, structural way, where she started rearranging things. My dad suddenly started getting billed for things around the house that she'd been managing. She stopped contributing to shared expenses. She picked fights about the division of finances in their marriage, maneuvering to get my dad financially dependent on the combined household income she controlled. It was a pressure campaign. She couldn't get the $6,000, so she was going to extract value somewhere else. My dad finally saw it clearly. I think part of him had always known but had needed the evidence to pile up beyond denial. His sister showing him the documentation, including a voicemail my stepmother had left the attorney's office trying to redirect the bequest, was the thing that finally got through. He came to me one evening. I was doing homework at the kitchen table. He sat across from me and said, "I owe you an apology." I looked at him, not just for the watch, for all of it. For the night I didn't come off that porch with you. I didn't say anything for a while. "I have a notebook," I said finally. "You should read it." He read the whole thing that night. Every page. I sat in the next room listening to the house be quiet. He didn't file for divorce immediately. That's not how it works, and I won't pretend it was a clean break. But he hired an attorney, and I helped him gather documentation. Here is what methodical revenge looks like when you've been keeping records for 2 years. My stepmother's campaign against me had left a paper trail she never thought anyone would be organized enough to follow. She'd made complaints to my school counselor, on record. She'd sent emails to my dad's sister that were dismissive and threatening in tone. She'd left that voicemail at the probate attorney's office. She'd signed her name to every manipulative move. The divorce proceedings began when I was 18, just before I left for college on an academic scholarship. My dad's attorney subpoenaed the school counselor's records. The 3-page typed list my stepmother had created about my behavioral issues, the one she'd handed to my dad, became part of the discovery process. Her own document, her own words, undermining her credibility about everything else. My dad's sister submitted documentation about the pressure campaign regarding the estate. The probate attorney provided the voicemail. My stepsister, now 19, tried to get in front of it. She reached out to me, for the first time ever, directly, without her mother, and said she was sorry. Said she'd been coached. Said some of the things she'd told her mother about me weren't true, and she knew it. I appreciated it. I told her that. I also told her that I hoped she'd say the same thing to her mother's attorney, because the truth was going to be more useful now than it had been when we were teenagers.
She did.
She provided a written statement to my dad's divorce attorney. My stepmother's legal posture collapsed in stages. She'd entered the proceedings expecting to negotiate from strength, control of the household finances, established residence, an argument that she'd been the primary caregiver. What she hadn't anticipated was that her history of manufactured conflicts was documented and contradicted by her own daughter. Under Ohio law, in a divorce case where marital misconduct can be demonstrated, including financial manipulation, it can affect the division of assets. My dad's attorney made the case carefully. The court didn't give my dad everything, but the split was significantly less favorable to her than she'd planned. She had to sell her car. She had to move out. She had to go back to work full-time when she'd grown comfortable not doing so. Her request for alimony was denied based on the demonstrated financial manipulation within the marriage. The gold watch, recovered long ago, sat on my dad's dresser when I came home for Thanksgiving that year. Just him and me in the house for the first time since I was 11. He made a bad turkey. We ate it anyway. I turned 18 with $6,000 in an account, a scholarship, and a notebook full of evidence that taught me the most important professional skill I have. Document everything, stay calm, and let entitled people build the case against themselves. She had told me to get out. I got out all right. Right into a life she couldn't touch. If you stuck with this all the way to the turkey, you're exactly the kind of person who deserves to hit subscribe, because if I let this much out in one post, imagine what I'm holding back for the next one.